Chapter 2 of A Different Cowboy by Joe Jones. When Johnny got back to the ranch, he saw that the 3 missing cattle were back. He walked into the house to see everyone at the table eating breakfast. His mom and dad had showed up to eat. Johnny took off his hat and pulled out the chair to sit down. "Good morning, Ma and Pa." "Where the hell have you been, son? Breakfast is damn near over now." Johnny didn't want to say nothing about Pa's cattle getting out, so he thought of a lie. "I took my horse for a ride this morning down by the river, just to clear my thoughts." His brother Leroy, knowing where he had been, took a bite of his biscuit slowly and looked over at Paul. "Why don't you tell him where you really were?" Bill said to Johnny. Paul looks up at Johnny. As Johnny stares at Bill, Ma keeps her head down, eating in silence. "Well, go on, boy. Tell me where you were. At that damn saloon getting drunk again? That's probably what happened to your eye. Since when do I have to tell everyone my business? I'm a 30-year-old man," Johnny says to everyone looking around. "Since it's such a damn big deal," says Paul. Leroy stands up at the table and says, "We saw him talking to a black woman a few miles away." "Okay," says Paul. "He took his cowboy hat off to her as to show her respect." This angered Paul. He had fought just 10 years prior in the Civil War and was a very devout racist. "Why are you showing respect to a damn black woman?" Paul yelled, slamming his fist into the table. "Because she's number 1, a lady, and number 2, a human just like us," Johnny exclaimed in anger. A few days later, Johnny is on the front porch in a rocking chair, watching the thunderstorm clouds roll in. As lightning flashes across the sky in the distance, he lights up one last cigarette before the night. Bill walks out onto the porch with him and leans against a post supporting the porch. He takes a bite out of an apple, looking at the grass as it yields to the growing wind picking up. "Looks like a bad storm is coming in," he says to Johnny. Johnny sits there in silence, blowing smoke, as heavy raindrops begin to fall on the roof. "You ain't been saying much lately, Johnny." "Got nothing to say to you, Bill," he replies. Bill nods his head slowly and turns to walk back inside. "Oh, wait. There is one thing I need to say to you. Fix that damn screen door tomorrow. The damn thing's probably not going to make it through the storm tonight." Bill grins and walks inside. The rain picks up harder, blowing onto the porch, wetting Johnny's pants and then putting out his cigarette. He looks at it and shakes his head. "Should have built a bigger porch," he says to himself. He walks inside and locks the old wooden door. He sits down at the table with Bill and Keith, discussing work on the land for the week. Then a big bang at the door, followed by a voice screaming, "Hello! Hello! Please open the door!" The 3 cowboys look at each other puzzled. Johnny grabs a Smith & Wesson rifle and opens the door to see a man and a woman and a child standing there on the porch, soaked with rain. He looks past them to see a wagon, the top torn from the storm, and a horse. "Please, sir, me and my family need somewhere to stay tonight. We have nowhere to go." "Where you from?" says Johnny. "Alabama. On our way to California to look for gold." "Gold?" Johnny says. "Yes, there's a gold rush in California right now. People from all over going there." "I ain't heard about it yet," says Johnny. "Y'all come in. I'll throw some firewood on the stove to heat up the house. I know y'all gotta be cold. Keith, go out and put this man's horse up in the barn for the night. Bill, you get him some beans. These folks have been traveling a long way." Johnny steps aside and lets the family walk in. "What's your name, partner?" "Toby," the man replies. "My wife Martha and son James." "Well, nice to meet y'all. Y'all sit down and make yourselves at home." Those poor cattle are out there. They got no shelter. Nowhere to go. I bet they're scared to death, says Martha. It's okay, honey, Toby assures her as they sit down. Johnny walks over to the cabinet. You a drinker? I used to be, he says as he looks at his wife. Johnny puts a shot glass of whiskey in front of him. Nonsense, have a drink. They hear the howling of the wind. The shutters begin to slam open and shut against the windows. I better fix those before they break a window, says Johnny as he puts on his coat and walks out the door. Toby takes a bite of beans and looks over at Keith polishing his cowboy boots with a cloth. Snakeskin, he asks? Yes, replies Keith. Diamondback, he says as he throws one in Toby's direction. I only wear these into town. I killed it myself. Was 6 feet long. Walked up behind him and picked him up by the tail. Ripped his head off with my bare hands, says Keith, as he stares at Toby with a blank look on his face. Bill starts to laugh and throws a shirt at him. Man, you're full of shit. You know you bought those in Albuquerque. Next morning, Johnny walked outside with a metal coffee mug in his hand. He takes a sip and walks into the mud to access the damage. Some of the tin on the roof was ripped away during the raging storm. Nowhere to be found. He shakes his head and walks over to the barn to check on the horses. They were fine, but the barn had many boards ripped away as well. Toby, the drifter, walks out of the house and comes over to Johnny. Partner, I can stay a few days, help y'all fix the damage, as a way of saying thank you. You know, for you letting me and my family stay here last night. Johnny stands there for a moment staring at the barn. He thinks of the woman he met the other day. Okay, he says. You can stay for a few days. I got to run into town real quick and check on some things. Tell Bill and Keith to get their ass up and help you. So Johnny got his horse, Ranger, saddled up. But instead of heading north to town, he headed south towards the valley where the woman lived. Bill and Keith had just been told Johnny was going into town, but when they seen him ride off in the other direction, they knew really where he was headed, and they looked on with anger. As Johnny reaches the top of the hill, he looks down the valley at the house. He sees her house has taken more damage than his. He reaches the front of her house and walks through the muddy, wet grass and knocks on the door. Once again, no answer. This time either. So Johnny walks around back. The clothesline she had hung her clothes on, gone. One of the posts remained, but was nearly touching the ground. And the wooden siding across the backyard and boards from the roof scattered about. Now what the hell are you doing on my property again? He hears a voice yelling. He turns around to see the woman standing there with her hands on her hips. He removes his cowboy hat and says, Good morning, ma'am. We had a really bad storm last night. I noticed, she says, cutting him off. He grins and continues. And I, wanted to come by and make sure you were okay. Yeah, we're fine, she says. Well, I see your house took quite a beating, worse than mine, and well, I'm a carpenter and I can fix all this, no charge. No, she states. Me and my pa can fix this. Okay, says Johnny as he smiles at her. Just let me know if you need some help, darling. Oh, I assure you, cowboy, I won't. She says as he gets on his horse. She watches him as he rides up the hill. She shakes her head and walks back into her house. Johnny rides his horse into town to see some friends down at his favorite saloon. He walks in and walks up to the bar. The old man behind the counter stares at him for a moment. What'll it be, John? The barkeeper asks. Whiskey, says Johnny. That'll be 5 cents. Johnny throws a nickel down and takes a sip. He pulls a cigarette from his shirt pocket, lights it with a match, blows smoke into the air, and looks around. the smoke-filled room. He sees women sitting on men's laps, gamblers, wannabes, losers, and boozers. The smell of warm beer and profanity fill the air. Then he sees 3 of his friends sitting at a table, waving for him to come over. He smiles as he waves and walks over and sits down. "Howdy, fellas. Long time no see. Y'all just make it back to town?" His friends were born and raised in Mexico and had fought in the Mexican-American War until it ended at the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. They came back to the United States in 1863, right in the middle of the Civil War. They had been Mexican Americans ever since. Juan, Armando, and Jose had just got back from Mexico when Johnny ran into the saloon. He shakes their hands and finishes down his whiskey. "You drinking that weak stuff, amigo?" "Yeah, here, we brought you back a bottle of some good stuff, my friend, from Mexico," Armando adds, as he puts a bottle on the table. "Tequila?" asks Johnny. "Yes, gringo," Jose says. Johnny pours some and takes a shot. He nods his head. "That's pretty good, amigos. Thanks for the bottle." "Look in the bottom. There's a worm in it," they tell him. Johnny lifts the bottle and sees it. "What the hell? How'd he get in there? Y'all not shut the top of this bottle coming back from Mexico?" They laugh. "Well, that's the drunkest worm I've ever seen," says Johnny, as he takes a drag of his cigarette. "Gringo, we just made it back to town a few days ago, and your brother and a couple of guys were up here the other night talking about you." "What did they say?" asked Johnny. "Well, my friend, he was getting a lot of people stirred up over a woman you've been going to see lately, because of the color of her skin. Your brother said he thinks you like her or something," says Juan. "Yeah, and when everyone heard that, they got really angry and started shouting, 'Not in our town,'" says Armando, with his eyebrows raised, looking at Johnny. "My brother Bill?" asked Johnny. "Yes, amigo. I'd watch out for him. Seems like he's trying to get people to hurt you. Teach you a lesson." Johnny rubs his chin and nods his head. He puts his cowboy hat on and stands up to leave. "And gringo, if you find yourself in trouble, let us know. We're not just here to pick you up out of the horse shit when you fall on your way home from being too drunk." They all begin to laugh, and Johnny grins. "All right, compadres," says Johnny. "I'll be in touch." And with that, he walks out the door. The woman opens her eyes to hear a loud noise coming from the roof of her house. She hears it again. "What the hell?" she begins to say to herself as she crawls out of the bed. She looks out of the window from her bedroom, but sees nothing. Then she looks out of the window from the front of the house and sees a horse with a wagon and wood stacked in it. Puzzled, she walks out to see Johnny on her roof with a hammer in his hand and nails in his mouth. He continues to hammer, unaware that she is watching. "Hey!" she yells to him. "What are you doing up there?" "Oh, howdy, ma'am," he responds. "I'm just up here fixing your roof. I figured you and your pa would have done it by now, but I rode by yesterday and seen y'all haven't started yet, so I figured I'd come by and do it. It's been raining on and off and since the storm, so I know it must be leaking inside your house." It had been leaking in her house, and the woman was relieved to see it was being fixed, but she said, "I told you we could do it. My paw just real bad sick right now, that's all. Just needed a few more days and we could have done it." "Well, ma'am, your paw's been sick for quite a while, and now you want me to get a doctor out here for him?" "No," she said boldly. "I tried that. All there is around here is white doctors, and they won't help no colored folks like us. Johnny shakes his head as he nails another board down. Well, that's a damn shame, ma'am. She looks over at the wood in his wagon. That's a lot of wood you brought there. The storm didn't tear off that much. No, it didn't, but by the looks of this house, I'd say it's about 50 to 60 years old, so I figured there's probably quite a few spots that need to be replaced. Hell, I might just end up redoing the entire roof. Johnny laughs. Don't do that, she says. Johnny looks at her puzzled and asks, Why not? Because I can't afford to pay you for all of that. I may not even be able to pay you for what you've done already. So you might as well stop now. And I ain't about to be working for another white man for free, just to pay off my debt for his roof. It would take me years. Johnny stops hammering and opens his mouth as he looks down at her, but struggles to find the words. He looks across the prairie as she stands there with her hands on her hips, looking up at him. Ma'am, I don't want any money from you, or any free labor from you, he says to her and grins. You must be lying, 'cause ain't no man down here in the South gonna do nothing for a woman for free, especially for a black one. Well, I'm doing it for free. Don't worry about it, ma'am. No charge. Why me? She asks. Because not all cowboys are outlaws and bad, or racist. There are good men who think like me. I'm a different cowboy. Yeah, but there are plenty of other women who need help in town, and other folks like yourself. I've been a slave all my life. Nobody helps black people around here. Stop, Johnny interrupts her, angered. Stop labeling yourself as a slave. You are so much more than that. You are a very beautiful, free African-American lady who is loved and created by God just as much as I am. You deserve this, okay? The woman didn't know whether to be offended by his aggression to her or to be flattered by what he called her and how he's seen her. No one had even called her beautiful, or especially a lady before, and everyone in town disrespected her and gave her dirty looks because of her skin color, and would often refuse to give her service, or if they did, they would charge her double, making it very seldom that she even wandered into town. She stood there quietly for a moment. Johnny stood up on the roof and looked behind the horse. He saw a very large garden with tomatoes, onions, okra, beans, and potatoes growing. This concludes Chapter 2 of A Different Cowboy.